Corporate finance practice problem, convertible bonds, pure bond value impact versus conversion value impact on price. Get ready, it's time to take our chance with corporate finance. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet and would like to follow along, note that we're in the practice tab as opposed to the example tab. The example tab in essence being an answer key. We have the information on the left-hand side. We're going to populate that into the blue area on the right-hand side, considering our convertible bonds, those being the bonds with the option but not obligation for the investor to convert to some number of shares of stock. We'll be considering the valuation of them, both from the stock side of things and from the bond side of things, to try to get at then the value of the convertible bonds. So we have, starting off here, we got the convertible bonds outstanding, rate 12%. The pure value or the par value is $1,000. The conversion ratio, meaning the number of shares the bonds can be converted into, each bond would be the 45 shares. They mature in 15 years. The conversion premium is $98, that being the premium over and above the conversion value. If we were to convert the bonds to stocks, this would be the amount over and above that would get to the price of the bonds. Then they are semi-annual bonds, meaning the interest is paid semi-annually. The stock price is $35. So at this point, stock price selling for the $35. If we were to convert the bonds, then in other words, the stock that we're converting to currently selling for that $35. 1 year later, we're going to assume the stock price goes up to $42, conversion premium at $35 at that point in time, and the yield for similar bonds is at the 9%. So let's start off with our starting conversion value for one bond. So if we had one bond, starting conversion value would be the conversion ratio. So we'll pick up the conversion ratio at the 45. We can convert then the one bond to 45 shares. In other words, and those shares have a stock market price at this point in time of the $35. So if we got 45 shares at $35, we're going to go to the font group and underline. That's going to be our conversion value, which would be equal to the 45 times the 35. So the value would be the $1,575. And then we can look at the bond price. Remember that the bond price could include the premium on the bond, the conversion premium, and that's going to be the $98 to get us up to the bond price. In other words, the conversion premium by definition is the amount over and above the conversion value to get to the bond price. So we're going to be picking up the conversion value, which is the $1,575. We'll pick up the conversion premium, which is currently at 98, and that'll give us to our starting bond price, which would be equal to the SUM, or sum of those two items. That's the $1,673. Let's go to the font group and underline. So there we have that. And now we're going to think about our ending bond conversion value at a year later here we have. That's going to give us our conversion ratio, which is the same amount of stocks that we can convert to, that being 45 shares of stock. But now the conversion or the stock price is now at $42. So we got $42, underlining that, font group and underline. That's going to give us then our conversion value, or ending conversion value. That's going to be the 45 times the 42, the number of stocks and the stock price. That gives us our $1,890. And then we got the ending bond price, knowing that they gave us the conversion premium, which once again is the amount over and above the conversion value to get to the bond price. So that's going to be our conversion value of the $1,080 and the conversion premium of the $35 to give us our ending bond price at this time, 1 year later, equaling the SUM, sum of those two items, that giving us the $1,925. We'll put an underline under the 35 here, and then we could figure out the interest earned to get to our rate of return. So what would be the return that we would basically have? Before we get there, we got to make sure that it's 1 year later, and we kept them as a bond format. So we're going to be picking up the rate of return of the interest that we have earned for that year. So we'll pick up the par value for one bond. Par value is 1,000. The interest rate is the 12%. 12% on the interest rate. That would mean that we would have earnings with regards to interest earned. Interest earned. And let's make this a percent. Go into the number group, percentifying it, font group, and underlining it. That would be 1,000 times the 12%, or 120. So then we can think about our rate of return then, which would be the bond, the ending bond value. Let's say end bond value, which would be equal to, we calculated the 1,925 minus the starting bond value, or the cost, which would be equal to, we calculated that to be the 1,673 bond price up top. The difference between the two would be our gain on the bond, which would be the difference between these two, subtracting them out, font group and underline. And we also had the interest, so I'm going to add the interest to it. Remember, for taxes, you might have different kind of things when you would think about the gains, capital gains, interest, and whatnot, but we're just trying to think about what our overall return is here. So we're going to be adding to that the 120. So if we add to that, then our overall gain, or our total increase, let's say, would be then equal to the 252 gain plus the 120 on the interest. So that's going to be the 372. If we compare that then to the starting point, our starting value, the cost, in other words, of the 1,673, we would get then our rate of return, which would be equal to the 372 divided by the 1,673, making that a percent. Numbers group, percentifying it, couple decimals. So we got the 22.24 on the percent. So now let's go back up top and consider our pure bond value. The pure bond value being the value of the bond, like similar bonds that didn't have the conversion. So we said that similar bonds have a yield of the 9%. If we use that to figure out, estimate the bond price, we can take a look at what similar bonds would be. That would be giving us the present value of the interest payments and the present value of the ending component of the 1,000 at the end that you will be receiving. Now we're going to do this fairly quickly because we've seen this in the past, and we have a whole section on bond calculations and a whole section on present value calculations. So if you want to review those, take a look at those sections. So we're going to take present value of the interest payments first, negative present value, shift 9. The rate is going to be that 9%. But they're semi-annual, so I'm going to take the 9% divided by 2 because we need 6-month time periods. And then comma, we're going to take the number of periods, and this is going to be a little tricky. I'm going to put a bracket here. The number of periods were 15, but then 1 year has passed. So now I'm going to say minus 1. So 15 minus 1, I'm going to put a bracket. That's going to give us 14. And then they're semi-annual, so I got to double the 14. So 14 times 2 is going to be the number of periods, or 28 periods at this point. And then comma, the payment is going to be the 1,000 times the 12%, but that 12% is a yearly rate, and we need every 6 months because we're semi-annual, so we're going to take that and divide it by 2. So fairly complex formula here, but hopefully that makes sense. We're going to then say enter. That's going to give us the 945. Let's add a couple decimals. 944.57. Now we're going to take the present value of that 1,000, negative present value, shift 9, rate 9% again, divided by 2 for semi-annual, comma, number of periods, same calculation, brackets. We had 15 minus 1 that had passed. Close the brackets because we need order of operations, that being 14. And then we got to double it times 2. If I don't have the brackets, it's going to multiply the 1 times, times 2, and won't do it in the right order. So times, we're going to say times 2, and then comma. There's no payment because we're looking at the present value of 1. This is not an annuity, so comma, comma, or you could put a 0 there. We want to pick up the rate at 12%, but that's we're going to pick up, the future value at the 1,000, and that's it. Okay, so there we have that formula. Looks like this. And then enter. Let's hold on a second. Did it do it right? Yeah, that's right. So then I'm going to add a couple decimals. I think it just didn't like that I didn't close up the brackets, but it did it for us anyways. Font group and underline, let's sum that up, equals the SUM, equals the SUM. And let's go ahead and add some decimals there. Now then the question is, now we're looking at this from two sides at this point. We've got the pure bond value, which is us trying to estimate based on other bonds that are of similar nature. And we have the conversion, which we have now calculated at the ending conversion price, the conversion value of the 1,890 here, the 1,890 versus the 1,236. And the question is, well, we're looking at them from two sides, right? If we were to convert the bonds, we can look at it from the value of the bonds that would be converted to common stock and value the common stock, or we can think about what if there was no conversion and we didn't use the conversion and we thought about just the pure bond value. Now, when you look at those two, if I calculate the pure bond value and it's less than the conversion value, then in essence, you would think that the pure bond value calculation wouldn't be the driving factor for the valuation of this security, even though it could, it might have but the major impact you would think then would be the conversion ability when you're thinking about the valuation, because it's got the higher amount here. So that's going to be the general idea. So in other words, let's put a little note down here. Because the pure bond price is less than the conversion value, the pure bond price at this time has no significant impact on the actual bond price, because you would basically be thinking it's less than what you can convert for, so you would think that you would value it at the higher option, which would be the conversion option, since you have the ability to do so and the stocks are higher than the pure bond price. So the primary factor at this time that impacts the bond's price is the stock price.